Hello and welcome to Spirit Pig. This is the show that explores how to live a fulfilled life. I'm Duncan CJ and today I'm talking with Nick Onken. Nick is a creative entrepreneur, a world-renowned lifestyle, fashion and travel photographer, and he has worked with the likes of Jessica Alba, Usher, Justin Beiber, as well as some of the world's top brands such as Coca-Cola, Nike, Reebok, Vogue and Cosmopolitan. He's the author of the travel photography book, Photo Trekking, and is the host of ShopTalk Radio, a podcast with the mission of inspiring everyone to unlock their inner creativity and create their dream life. Hello, Nick. Thank you so much.
Hello. That was quite the intro.
I know. You're such a pro. Don't let me down now.
Sometimes I forget that I've done all that stuff.
We were just chatting a second ago about how it's like mic porn here. Like we've both got this awesome mic. It just looks so cool. And you're another podcaster, so you got the whole setup.
Yeah, I love this thing. Radio.
Now, one of the things when I was on your website, it's this word which is obviously extremely important. It's like, can you explain what you mean by creative resonance? What is that about, and why does that inspire you to do what you do?
The infamous term. Creative resonance is something that I just kind of came to over the last few years of my life, and it's kind of that high. It's like a high feeling. It's like a drug, and it's a feeling that I get when I create things, when I'm taking photographs or I create a painting or a podcast that I love, something that I'm proud of. And every time I create something, I feel that resonance, whether it's one Instagram shot or it's, on a photo shoot. And it's that spark, it's that je ne sais quoi about a photograph. I don't know if you ever heard that term, je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of like that. It's that feeling that you get from that. And there's also, I feel like there's that feeling, the same feeling when you're sharing that with other people. And, I get the same feeling in inspired conversations. And I'm sure you felt that before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I love it. Like you mentioned your Instagram there. I love it. There's just some great, as in you've got a combination of just beautiful shots, but then you've just got some awesome quotes. And I was just fuck, there's so many cool quotes, which I was want to talk about. One of them was just which I read and I was yeah, it said we attract what we are ready for or something like that. And it's it was so cool. Why did you post that? What does that mean for you? You attract what we're ready for?
Well, I think that comes into play with so many different aspects of life. I think the journey that I've been on over the last couple of years is just a more internal journey. It's been I did this emotional intelligence and leadership training in LA a couple of years ago, and that kind of expanded my mind into the realm of possibility of life and how we create these limiting beliefs based off of our past experiences. And it's when you start becoming aware of these things, we raise our consciousness in a certain state. And when we raise our consciousness, of who we are and what we're all about, we start to attract different things into our lives. And I believe that we attract what we are ready for, whether it's a job or a girl or whatever it is, it's about the inside first. And then once we are ready for whatever that is, the universe will bring that into our sphere.
Yeah, I love
that. Makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I quite like it. That was because it's now easy to you've got this awesome life, traveling around the world, photographing. But I mean, it was a real hustle to get there, which I loved. I mean, it was, and you've been quite honest about the fact that often people sell the dream, but you've been quite honest about it was a serious hustle. I mean, I think you had this great break back in 2000 something when you had this job from Nike, and you were you know what, I've made it. This is awesome. You're going to shoot these athletes. I've hit the big time. And then suddenly you didn't see another job like that for 2 years or something. You got to obviously, how did you manage that 2 years thinking, shit, when's it going to happen again?
Well, it was a humbling experience. I thought I was in, and then it took 2 years. And I think, that goes along with what we were just talking about. We attract what we're ready for. And I think that's something, especially in the creative space, because creativity is a journey, and making a living as an artist, your art is it takes a while to get to the place where people are hiring you for it. So in the same respective, we attract what we're ready for. Once your work gets to a certain place, it's going to attract the people to hire you for it, and you have to work on your craft and work on your art until you get to that arena. And maybe the Nike thing was like a fluke job. There was something in there that I was ready for that job, but like for the rest of it, where I'm at now, it took a couple years, and maybe it was something that I myself wasn't ready for until a couple of years later.
Yeah, and absolutely.
So pushing through it, it's like I talked about before, you get a capital job, and so that you can pay the bills while you're working on your craft, because it takes time. It takes 10,000 hours if you're ever at Malcolm Gladwell.
Absolutely.
And it takes a long time to get through that 10,000 hours. It takes a lot of energy and motivation and mindset to push through all the things that it takes to get there. There's so much resistance. The War of Art is also a great book that I read a long time ago, and he talks about the resistance, which is like whatever it is that keeps you from creating. And it could be distraction, could be negative thoughts, could be fears, could be anything. We all have those every day. And the idea is to push through that and to push through those fears, push through those distractions, and get through it and get off and start creating. And the more we can create, the faster we're going to grow. The faster you grow, the more you're going to attract the actual work into your life.
I love that. And you're talking about just learning by doing, and just messing around. Take action, screw up, learn on the job, and you'll learn faster. I think you're talking about when you learned about snowboarding the first time. Just throw yourself on the top of the mountain and just figure it out. You're gonna fall down, you're gonna get hurt, but I mean you're gonna learn pretty quickly that way.
Yeah, I mean that's always been my approach, is just like throw myself in the fire and figure out how to get out, or just like jump off the cliff and weave the parachute on the way down. And I think that's kind of the attitude you have to have in entrepreneurship. Is you just have to go. You just have to go for it and know that things are going to work out, and if they don't, then you can figure something else out. Yeah. I think the biggest thing for entrepreneurs is being okay with not having the security of knowing when your next paycheck is. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people, but that's part of the game.
Yeah. That's interesting. You use the word game, because I think when you approach it as a game, then I think it, almost like Monopoly or something, where it's like it is a game, and just you're gonna mess up, and you're gonna do well, and you're gonna mess up again, and then kind of almost approach it like that, rather than being so, I don't know. I mean, I guess it just changes the way you view and approach failure, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like if you're on it and you're failure can happen, but what is failure? It's learning as well.
Yeah.
You're either winning or learning. That was another one I posted.
You imagine living in a world of like love, passion, and inspiration, and believe that creativity is how we get there. Why do you feel that creativity is the key?
I think we're all creators, and regardless if you're an artist or not, I mean, everybody can create something from nothing. Entrepreneurs create something from nothing. They create businesses from nothing. I think we're all meant to create. We are all either creating or consuming, and I feel the most fulfilled when I'm creating. I mean, I know a lot of my friends feel the same way, and people that are constantly developing and creating in my life, and the conversations that I have are the people that are most fulfilled. They're creating what they want in the world. They're creating, was that be the change you want to see in the world? Yeah. And it's true. It's when you're actually doing things, that's I feel for me where the fulfillment comes from.
And when trying to talk about achieving dreams and stuff like that, it's this idea of, which you talked about, of working backwards. Can you explain what you mean by working backwards?
Well, in creative entrepreneurship, I think more on the creative side. I guess you can do it with anything, but kind of seeing the end and seeing what the successful people are doing and breaking down what makes them successful. And say, take photography, for instance. For me, it was about looking at other photographers' work that I aspired to, and I still do it. I still do it now because there's still another level that I want to get to, and breaking that down and what is it that I like about their work, and then how do I integrate that into mine, but how do I create my own style at the same time? There's aspects of, how did they get there? What did they shoot? What was the business aspect model that they created to get there? And so if you're reverse engineering and breaking it down, then you can learn how to integrate that into your own career and life and whatever it is. I mean, I'm speaking in the terms of a creative career, but you can use it. You can use that idea in any space, I think.
Yeah, that's when you were just talking that, it just reminded me of a book I read the other day, Steal Like an Artist. By Austin Kleon, yeah, isn't it? I love that idea of actually, looking at all these people you're inspired by, and actually, taking bits and being inspired by all these things. Rather than trying to think I've got to do something completely original. We're constantly being inspired and taking bits, from all these different inspirational people around.
Yeah. It's definitely not. You don't want to like plagiarize people, but sure. It's pulling. You're right. It is pulling inspiration from other artists, and there's I don't know if you heard of this guy Todd Henry, but I just interviewed him recently, and he's got a website called The Accidental Creative, and he talks about the creative process and the different stages that you go through in that process. And the first step is imitation. Because you emulate and you imitate until you kind of take what you learn from that and put it into your own work. You're not actually like copying, and sometimes it might look like you're copying, but as you go through the journey, you take elements that you love from that and then spin it and make it your own.
What is the thinking behind create your moments? And I think you've got that on like Twitter and you got hashtag create your moments. What's that all about?
Well, it kind of the whole idea was derived from the way that I shoot, the way that I approach my photography, and when I'm on set, when I'm shooting with talent or a model, I'm always creating the space for moments to happen. I'm not actually just directing precisely what I want. I like to create the space for them to play and for those spontaneous moments so it feels real. And I wanted something that could kind of translate socially. And I was like, well, what about create your moments? And then it kind of spawned into, well, that's kind of my mission. And that's what I've done with my life is you create the smallest of moments, you create your life. And I've always been a believer in lifestyle design, especially after the 4-hour work week I read like years and years ago. And so creating your moments is like the social hashtag that I came up with to inspire other people to do that and to consciously choose creation. Because we can either choose creation or consumption or living in circumstance. And creating your moments is about, jumping off and creating that for yourself in your life. And like I said, when you create the smallest of moments, you create your life, you create your career, you create the bigger picture, you create the bigger story.
So start on the micro level, and then that radiates out.
Because I mean, like you think about it in the moment, and you have a decision. You're like, oh, I could go create this, or I can just sit down and like do nothing. And it's almost like a mantra of like, okay, I'm gonna go create my moments. I'm gonna go get fulfilled. I'm gonna go do something that's fulfilling.
No, nice. I like that. Now, I mentioned in the intro that you host your own podcast, like ShopTalk Radio, and you interview like countless like successful creative entrepreneurs. Like, have there been any sort of stories in particular that have like really like stuck with you?
Oh man,
I'm sure
it's so funny. Like all the people, all the people that I've interviewed are like they're interesting to me. So like I'm always so fascinated to talk to everyone. I think the first interview I put up was with Scooter Braun. And funny story, like I was actually like nervous to ask him, but in all, it was a funny story. So we took Justin down to Guatemala, Justin Bieber, that is, and to visit the schools for Pencils of Promise and to do some charity work. And I know Scooter, I didn't know him that extremely well, and it was me, him, and Adam coming back on the plane. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask him. I'm just starting this podcast. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I think it'd be fun. So I asked him, and he was like, oh yeah, anything. Totally. Absolutely. He's like, I'm in town this week. Let's do it. So I went to his hotel during the week, and we got in. I sat down. I had my little cheap travel mic sitting there, and he's like, what is this thing again? And so we sat down. He's like, wait, we can edit this, because I gotta I gotta work. Like, how long is this gonna take? Like 45 minutes to an hour. He's like, okay, well, I gotta still answer phones and stuff like that. And we sat down and we got started, and literally he just ignored every phone call, and he was so into it. He loved it. It was great. That was a great one. Oh, same with when I asked Usher, he was like, I was like, hey, can I get you on my podcast? And he was like, what is this? He didn't even know what a podcast was or is. But it's funny, apparently only 17% of the population listen to podcasts.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought, yeah.
Think about that. I read this article about it.
But when you just mentioned Usher, I think there was I remember seeing, I think it was on your blog, that one of the biggest things that he said that really that from that interview was he said the key is you've got to either evolve or evaporate, and so you've got to constantly be reinventing yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny. Funny you mentioned that, because that is the one thing that stuck out to me from that interview. I mean, we talked a lot about family and the importance of all of that and staying centered and grounded, but we ended with evolve or evaporate. And it's so true. You have to keep evolving. Otherwise, you're going to sink, and you're not going to be fulfilled, and you're going to other people are going to surpass you, because the world keeps changing, and it's changing even faster and faster now with the digital space, the internet, everything. Things are moving and changing, and you got to adapt and evolve and keep going with it.
Yeah, I think that's I think one of the things was interesting was do you kind of feel that? Because I think often there was it's really interesting because on your blog there's you give a lot of advice and things which are you're thinking about the moment. And there was a theme that I saw was it was always you just been to some training or read a book or gone to some course. Are you constantly learning, constantly growing? I mean, is that important to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the most fulfilling part. And I've always been into personal development, but not as much as I am now. In the last couple of years, I feel like having coaches and becoming better at life is going to make everything else better, from the inside out. So if you're working on yourself internally to become a better person, you're going to create bigger results in your life, from deeper relationships to a more fulfilled life to a bigger impact. I think it's very, very important.
Yeah. What would you say about, because I guess there's maybe two different schools of thoughts. Some people are saying, trying to turn your passion into a business can maybe just kill that passion. But you're obviously someone who's actually, who's made it work. You are living, breathing, you do what you love for a living. Where's your take on that?
I think you got to stay balanced, first of all. And it's a conscious choice to have that balance and to create that balance for yourself. And I think as much as you do paid work, you've got to carve out the time to do personal work and do stuff that's fulfilling to you. And I'm still working on that today. And, I'm working on, I've developed a style. Now I'm working on developing a signature. And that's the next step for me. So that takes that's going to take a lot of personal work on the other side, while I'm still doing it's like a juggling act. The whole, it's always like a juggling act. You're paying the bills, and then you're doing your own work. And it started like that from the beginning. I was taking small jobs. I was taking design jobs. I was doing whatever I could to pay the bills while I was working on my photography. And then my photography got to the point where I was getting hired for it. And now I'm getting paid the big dollars for advertising and stuff like that. So now I have that, now I'm playing on it, like I'm juggling on a bigger level, you know. So like I've got all that stuff going that funds like all my other creative projects. So the podcast, more, you know, more of my own photography projects. Like I'm going to Cuba next week on my own dime just to shoot. I'm taking a model down there, and we're just gonna go run around for like 5 days and create. And you know, we're not getting paid. I'm not getting paid. It's just for fun. And I think you got to stay fresh and stay creative to balance out the money jobs, because a lot of times the money jobs aren't as creatively fulfilling. So I think that's the balance between staying passionate, sorry, staying passionate as you're talking about, and not losing it. You know, there was a couple years, it was like 2009, 2010, I was like shooting so many advertising jobs. I got burnt out. You know, the same thing. I was just like, like so many jobs. It's taking so much time. Yeah, I was making a lot of money, but the jobs weren't as creatively fulfilling. So I think trying to balance out the time that you're spending doing money jobs and creative projects for yourself is huge. It's key.
Amazing, yeah. And what do you say a fulfilled life means to you?
Fulfilled life means, I think, being happy with yourself at the core of who you are, and living the life that you want and creating the life that you want, because we all have the power to create what we want. We just have to start from the smallest moments. And sometimes it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, and you have to be smart about it. So, you know, I think constantly developing, having the right people in your life, you know, curating the life around you, whether it's your environment, curating the inspiration that's, you know, in your environment. It's curating the people that you're interacting with that, you know, push you to be a better person as much as you push them. And, you know, doing what fulfills you, whether it's traveling. Some people love traveling, some people don't, but find what fulfills you, what is exciting to you, and integrate that into your life. You know, what's your ideal day look like? Do it, create it.
Love it. Yeah.
Probably sounds a lot easier than said than done, but you know.
And what is one thing all our listeners can do today that will have a massive positive effect on their lives?
One thing, create your moments.
That hashtag's going viral.
You know, it's funny. I guess I talk about it a lot, but it's true. I mean, if you're in that moment where you get to decide, and it's realizing that you have the power to choose.
Yeah.
So if you have the power to choose, then choose it. Push through the stuff. Push through the fears that keep you from that.
I love that. That's a theme that's really come up like loads throughout all these interviews. Is that, you know, we've got control. You know, whether you like what you see or you don't like your reality, like you've got the power. You know, it's actually really it's empowering, because you can change, you know, your life. Anything you don't like, you can change. Like you can craft and, you know, your design, you know, your ideal life. So I think that's hugely empowering and uplifting to realize that.
Yeah, and it's all through the mind. Everything is in your mind. You know, you create your reality, and your thoughts create your reality.
Yeah.
And that's how, you know, through my podcast and interviewing all these successful people, the common thread is the mind power that they have and the mindsets that they have to get to where they've gotten. And the people that don't succeed are the people that let their fears and let their doubts and get to them. And if you can push through all that, if you can reframe your mind. Like I have another quote that I put, it was like, be the Jedi of your own mind. If you can Jedi your own mind, that's the ticket, because belief is everything. And believing in yourself and knowing that you can do it, and getting past the negative stories that you tell yourself.
Yeah.
We all have negative stories that we tell ourselves.
I think the key is that the people who do kind of succeed, they've still got the same fears, the same insecurities as everyone else, but they've pushed through and done it despite that, rather than that stopping them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is really interesting. Yeah. Are there any books, we mentioned a couple earlier, but are there any books or resources which have changed or had a massive impact on you?
What are the latest books? I'm like notorious for like starting books and then not finishing them. So I have like 50 books in my Kindle that are like halfway finished. Gosh, Outliers, Steal Like an Artist, The War of Art, The 4 Hour Work Week. I mean, Lewis's book, The School of Greatness, is going to be a great one coming out. So that comes out in November. I just started reading it. I shot the book cover.
Last but not least, how can people stay in touch? Where can we send them? Like, how can they stay in touch and find out more about you and your work?
I'd say Instagram is probably my favorite social media platform, and that's at Nick Onken, Nikonken, across all platforms. So nickonken.com, Twitter, Nick Onken, everything Nick Onken, except for Snapchat. I had to put the Nick Onken because somebody else had Nick Onken. So
that was me. I stole it. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm still trying to get on the Snapchat game.
I've never used it. It's the little 15 seconds or like 10 seconds and then it disappears, isn't it?
Yeah, it disappears after 24 hours. Now there's Periscope. I'm trying to do Periscope, but I've only done a couple of those.
Oh, God, I lose track. Nick, this has been so much fun talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, man.